everyone, I'm Sara Sach and welcome back to my crochet channel. Now today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet this beautiful and comfy poolside bucket hat. We're calling it a bucket hat because it has the top that's a little bit flatter to make it a little more comfy to wear. But of course, it's a sun hat, has a little bit of a brim to keep the sun out of your eyes, and these beautiful, simple flowers. So the hat fits a size youth to adult, which is about 20 inches up through 24 inches, and that's because it's super stretchy. But one thing to keep in mind is if you like to wear your hats just a little bit more snug, go down a hook size than the recommended size. And if you like them a little bit looser, maybe you have a lot of hair like I do, you can always go up a hook size and make it just a little bit looser. So whether you like it tighter or looser, this pattern will work for you. I'm going to show you how to make the complete pattern and the flowers as well. Now I chose these simple little spring flowers. Of course, we've been using them. They're great. They've been on lots of projects on our YouTube channel, and I just love them. But you don't have to add those flowers if you don't want to. Now you can find the complete pattern with pictures on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make your poolside bucket hat, you're going to need about 3 ounces of a medium weight number 4 yarn. Now I chose to use this yarn. It is your Super Saver Stripes acrylic yarn, and the colorway is called Fruity Stripe. And I love the way the colors play in this yarn. It makes a gorgeous summer hat. 3 ounces of a medium weight number 4 yarn. We're going to be using our eye hook today, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle just for weaving in ends, and if you want to sew on some of those flowers I'm going to show you how to make, you'll need that needle to sew those on as well. And then of course you're going to need a pair of scissors. We're going to begin at the top of the hat and work our way down. We're going to begin with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 5 chains. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle. So we'll put the tail of yarn over our hook and pull it through. And then we'll just snug that down and make our stay knot. If you prefer to use the magic circle or another method to make a circle here, that's totally fine. We're going to go in the circle, pull up a loop, and chain 3. Now we're going to stitch 9 double crochets in this circle. And just in case you don't know, a double crochet is yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2 loops. Oops, got a stringy one there. Alrighty. Now our chain 3 that we started with counts as 1 double crochet, and we're stitching 9 more. And that's going to give us 10 double crochets for the top of our hat for row 1. Let's see how many I've stitched. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need 1 more double crochet. You'll notice as I stitched my double crochets, I stitched over the tail of yarn. We're going to join to the top of that chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. But before we go on and do row 2, we're going to turn it over, gently pull on that string, grab our needle, and go ahead and weave this in. Now if you want to wait to the end of your project, you can wait to the end if you want to. I just like to go ahead and get it done now. I think it's easier than fighting with the inside of the hat. But if you want to wait, that's totally up to you. There we go. So you want to gently pull on that, go one way, then go back the other way, and just make sure that is tidy and secure. Going through stitches and fibers of the yarn. We'll clip that. And now we have, for row 1, 10 double crochets, joined to the chain 3 and chained 3. All right, let's do row 2. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. And now what we're going to do is we're going to place 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. We had 10 double crochets in row 1. We're stitching 2 double crochets in each of those 10. So in row 2, we'll need to have 20 double crochets. So we stitched 2 double crochets in each of those 10. So we have 20 double crochets. We joined to our chain 3 and chained 3. Let's do row 3. Basically, row 3 is the same as row 2. We're going to double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. And then 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. Two double crochets in each of the double crochets around, then we'll join back to our chain 3 and chain 3 again. So again, I have stitched 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around, so I have 40 double crochets. I joined to my chain 3 and chained 3. For row 4, we're going to double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then we're going to double crochet in the next 2 double crochet stitches. And so what we're going to be doing for row number 4 is we're going to be doing what I call 2 and 2. So we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. 2 double crochets in the next stitch, and 1 double crochet in the next 2. I call it 2 and 2. It's not an official term. It just helps me remember what I'm supposed to be doing on this row. So we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next double crochet and 1 double crochet in the next 2. And we'll repeat this working all the way around this row. So 2 double crochets in the next and 1 double crochet in the next 2. And repeat working all the way around our row, and then again we'll join to our chain 3 and chain 3. So for row 4, we stitch 2 and 2, 2 and 1 in the next 2, all the way around. We join to our chain 3 and chained 3. And for row 4, you should have 54 double crochets. All right, so now we're going to do row 5. We're going to stitch a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. And now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 8 double crochet stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you'll notice it's going to start curling now. So we stitched 2 in the first, which we chained 3 and stitched 1 in that first double crochet. So that's 2 together there in that same stitch. It's not a decrease, but it's stitching 2 double crochets in that same stitch. Then we stitched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 double crochets. Now in the next stitch, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the same stitch. And then again, we're going to stitch 8 double crochets. This is 6, 7, and 8. And just to make sure, here's our 2 we stitched in the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the next stitch. And then we'll just repeat this around 8 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 8, and then 2 in the next, all the way around for row 5. And again, you're going to notice that your hat's going to start curling a little bit. We wanted it flat on the top because it's sort of a bucket style hat. But now we want it to curl down, and we're going to begin making the sides of our hat. I completed row 5, and you should have 60 double crochets. We joined to our chain 3, and this time we chained 4, not 3. And that's because we're going to begin our V stitches. All right, and so our chain 4 counts as a double crochet, chain 1. And we're going to double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 4, and then chain 1. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches and V-stitch in the next stitch, which again is double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in the same stitch, and then chain 1. Skip the next 2, V-stitch in the next stitch, and chain 1. And we'll repeat this, working all the way around our hat. V-stitch, chain 1, skip 2, V-stitch in the next stitch, chain 1, and skip 2. And we'll repeat this, working all the way around. There we go. For row 6. So I completed my row of V-stitches, chain 1, skip 2, and you're going to have 20 sets of those V-stitches with the chain 1s in between. Here's my last V-stitch, chain 1. We're going to join to the 3rd chain of that chain 4 that we began with, slip stitch, and then slip stitch in that first chain 1 space and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so we have 20 V-stitches with our chain 1s in between for row 6. So for row 7, we're going to stitch our V-stitch in the chain 1 space. So we have our double crochet, chain 1 that our chain 4 counts as. So we'll double crochet in that same chain 1 space and chain 1. Then we'll go to the next chain 1 space of the next V-stitch and stitch a V-stitch. There we go. And chain 1. Then we'll go to the next chain 1 space and stitch our V-stitch and chain 1. And again, you're going to notice that the sides of your hat are going to start forming. It's going to curl down. for the sides of the hat. And I love the V-stitch for this hat because it makes a nice, roomy, comfortable hat and airy. And one thing to remember, if you feel like your hat is a little bit big at this point, you can always go down to the next size down, which is an H hook, a 5mm, if you want it to be a little bit more snug. But if maybe you have big hair like I do, a lot of hair, and it's a little bit too snug, you can always go up to a J hook or to the next size up to make it just a little bit more roomy, because we want this hat to be comfortable to wear. All right, so we're V-stitching in the chain 1 spaces of the V-stitches and chain 1 all the way around. So I stitched a V-stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces with my chain 1s in between. I'm going to join to the 3rd chain like we did on the previous row with a slip stitch. Then we'll slip stitch in the chain 1 space and chain 4. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to continue to repeat. Let me pull this here so you can see those stitches. We're going to continue to repeat row 7 for 5 more rows, and that's going to form the sides of our hat. So we're going to repeat row 7, which is this row, for 5 more rows. So I have repeated those 5 additional rows, so you have 7 rows of your V-stitch rows. Now, if you want your hat to be longer, say you have a longer head or you just want it to sit longer, you can always do a couple more rows of the V-stitch rows. Once you complete your V-stitch rows, you're going to join to that chain 3. You're going to slip stitch in that chain 1 space, and then we're going to chain 1. All right, and what we're going to do now is we're going to do a row of single crochets. So you'll single crochet in the double crochet. You're going to skip the chain 1 here, and you'll go right to the next double crochet and single crochet. You'll single crochet in the chain 1 space of the V-stitch, single crochet in the next double crochet. Skip the chain 1 in between the V-stitches and stitch a single crochet in the double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet of the V-stitch. All right, so basically what we're doing is we're skipping the chain 1s in between the V-stitches. All right, so we'll go right to that next double crochet and single crochet, go in the chain 1 space, and then the double crochet of the V-stitch. Skip that chain 1 and go right to the next stitch and stitch single crochet, single crochet, single crochet. All right, so we're skipping the chain 1s in between and just stitching a single crochet in the double crochet, the chain 1, and the double crochets of the V-stitches. And that's going to pull that in just a little bit so we can add the brim of our hat. And we'll continue this working all the way around our hat. I completed my row of single crochets, and remember, we only stitched in the double crochet, chain 1, and the double crochets of the V-stitches. We did not stitch a single crochet in the chain 1s in between, and this is just to kind of pull it in so that the brim lays nicely. We joined to our first single crochet and chained 3. All right, and now what we're going to do is begin the brim of our hat. So I chained 3. We're going to double crochet in the next double crochet. Then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next. One double crochet in the next 2. 1, 2, and then 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. And this is going to cause the hat to flare out just a little bit. We don't want it to be a big flare out. We just want enough to keep the sun out of our eyes. And so what we're doing for this row is 2 double crochets in the next, 1 double crochet in the next 2, 2 in the next, 1 in the next 2. And again, remember I call that 2 and 2, just to help me remember what I'm supposed to be doing on this row. All right, so 1 double crochet in the next 2, 1 and 2, and 2 double crochets in the next. And repeat this, working all the way around our hat, and you'll notice that the brim of your hat will start to flare out just a little bit. So I repeated the 2 and 2, 2 double crochets in the next, 1 in each of the next, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, all the way around. And you can see it flares out just a little bit. If you want it to flare out more, you can do 2 and 1, 2 and 1, and that'll make an even more, almost a little bit of a ripply hat if you want it that way. All right, so now what we're going to do on this next row is we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around. All right, so we're not adding any more stitches. As far as increasing, we're just stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets all the way around the brim of our hat. And this is again going to give us a little bit of a flare that looks like our bucket hat, because this is a bucket hat for the beach or by the pool or just to play outside. I like wearing a hat in the summer to keep the sun off my face because I freckle up. Alrighty, so 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets all the way around the brim of our hat. So I've stitched 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets around my hat, and you can see the brim is laying nice and beautiful. All right, so now we have one more row to do, and it's really simple. It's just a fun row, and we joined our chain 3 with our slip stitch and chained 1. We're going to go in the next double crochet and stitch a single crochet, chain 3, skip the next and single crochet in the next, chain 3, skip the next and single crochet in the next. 1, 2, 3 chains, skip the next and single crochet in the next. And so we'll just continue to repeat this, working all the way around for our last row. Chain 3, skip 1, single crochet in the next. Makes a nice little row to go along with our fun poolside hat. I finished that row, and I just love how it adds just a little bit of flair and fun to the edge of my hat. All right, so I'm going to cut my yarn. I've joined back to that first single crochet, but I'm going to go in that next stitch. There we go. And pull that loop to the inside just so my hat has a much neater appearance. All right, there we go. We'll tie that off, and I'll take my needle and weave this in. So we're going to begin with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 2 chains. 1, 2. Now in this second chain from the hook, we're going to stitch 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch and chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is going to make our petal. So we'll go to the next single crochet and slip stitch. If you want your petals to be longer, you can do longer chains for a more loopier flower. It's up to you. All right, let's chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll go to the next single crochet and slip stitch and chain 7. Single crochet in the next and repeat. There we go. So now I have 4 petals, and we'll just repeat this 2 more times so we have a total of 6 petals. So I've stitched 5. Here's my chain 7 for my 6th petal, and we're going to join to that next stitch with a slip stitch, and we're going to cut our yarn. Now you want to give yourself a little bit of yarn because we're going to use this to sew it on to our hat. All right, but before we do that, we need to close this hole up in the center. So we'll thread that onto our needle, and we'll just go around those single crochet stitches on the back side of our work so that we can close up that hole. Now if you want to use the magic circle for the flower, you certainly can. Make sure that's nice and snug, not going to come undone on us. Alrighty. So now we have a simple loopy flower. This is one of my favorite flowers to add to projects. So I added one, and I decided I wanted to put another one right there next to it, sort of off center a little. And the way we sew these on is you put it where you want it, and I go right down the center of the flower. Sometimes I don't, but for the most part I like to, because I'm only going to be stitching in these outside stitches. I'm not going to sew my petals down. All right, and so then I'll just go around and stitch in a circle, going around that. It's going to make the center kind of pooch up and stick up to give it a little bit of a 3D look, and also help your petals be a little bit loose, sort of 3D, I guess is what I'm talking about. All right, so I'll pull that to the back. I'm going to make sure that's on there securely, and then we're just going to weave that in and make sure it's going to stay put. This portion is in those V stitches, so I'm trying to go around through some of those stitches so it's going to stay put. We don't want to lose our flower. And I'm just adding these 2. You can add more, you can add less. And you can find another flower that you like better if you want to. There are tons of beautiful flowers out there. This is just one of my favorites to add to projects because it just adds a little extra fun without being too fussy. Alrighty. So we'll clip that. And now our poolside bucket hat has a couple of fun flowers to make it a fun hat. So now my poolside hat is all finished and ready for me to wear it outside to play by the pool, at the beach, or just taking my dogs for a walk, and I want to look extra cute. I am loving the flowers, I love the trim, and I love this yarn. Isn't it gorgeous?